pitch it in one line and then just sort of wait for the response, right?
Yeah, why
wouldn't you want to?
So it started off in cinemas with sort of one-off screenings. So the ICA, for instance, they were just going to do it for a week, but now they've rolled it over for this. I've been on for 3 weeks. So it's sort of a small film that's had that once people see, they're telling their friends about it, and people are coming back. And so it's included like telling, oh, I'm going to go along to the next one and bring my mum.
Bring your mum. This is great.
And so, or just bring them. Someone went on a date, a flatmate, a friend of a friend, met someone who'd been asked on a date to go and see it, which is quite nice. But there's that element of the cinema release, because I think it's quite small, but it's growing. It started with just an image of Dorothy DeLoe, who was an Australian player who features in the film, and she was 97 at the time, and the picture was in a magazine, and it was of her in her Australian national kit in the World Championships in Rio, the previous World Championships to the championships we filmed in China, and it was just that, and I thought a picture of a 97-year-old woman representing their country in a sporting event. You've got to be quite an interesting person.
在我身后呢，就是本次比赛年纪最大的100岁老人，来自澳大利亚的戴勒多罗西。可以说呢，已经被我们的媒体记者和众多的乒乓球爱好者团团的围住。我们也采访他几个问题。
Why are you participating in this competition? You are so old.
I'm not that old.
And so then looked into it, and very quickly in the UK there's this table tennis legend Les Darcy, and so very quickly found out about Les. He's 7 times world champion, so I got in touch with him, and he was just about to go to the European Championships in Croatia. So rather than going to meet him in Wakefield, he said, well, come out to Croatia. So I just got a camera and I went and met Les there, and within about 5 minutes he was quoting Kipling and his motivational mantras, and he then introduced me to the rest of the British team, including Terry Donlin, who turned out to be another main character in the film. What I like is is where you end up, and normally during the shooting, it's you kind of suddenly realise I'm in the middle of the Mongolian plains, and you've persuaded a lot of people to get involved in the project.
Or you're in the woods with a man shooting his Texan guns.
Yeah, with the
actually getting shot
at, and but not in an aggressive way, but in just by accident. But it's those moments I think are really brilliant, and that's what I think is brilliant about filmmaking. I think out of the ping-pong process, this specific film, the best moment was showing the main characters the film in front of an audience, and for them to see it. And because I think, they had they'd seen rough cuts and they'd seen it on a DVD. I think they fast forwarded to the bits that they were in, and it was just they saw it. It was interesting, but it was more like just a long. It was just a bit of it was. They didn't really know what it was or what to make of it, and then so for them to see it in a cinema with an audience, and the reaction of the audience afterwards was a brilliant moment for all of us.
And just to add that there's just making there's little moments when you make a film or you do anything, when it's like the sweet spot on the tennis racket, you've hit a good shot, something's happening. And whilst making the film, there were definitely more than usual moments. I remember just being, whether it's in the woods in Texas or walking behind Inga when she's in her care home, and I just knew that I'm watching the film unfolding. This is going to be in the film, and So they were good.
It was just like pulling a thread, and it was just steadily finding more and more interesting things about the people, mainly the UK people. So Les and his poetry, but also his sort of sport for him is a way of life, and he'd been involved in sport all his life, and he had a sort of unofficial gym in his garage where all the local kids would come and play ping pong and also do weights. And they now remember him. They're now in their 70s, and they talk about Les very fondly when they would go around in when they were teenagers to his house, and some went on to they represented their county and represented their country in weightlifting especially. And so his sort of sport is a major part of Les's life, and then still is. And so as Les has got older, he sort of adapted to which sports he did. So he used to do high jump up until his 60s, but now in his 80s he picked up shot put and ditched the high jump, and got the world record. And he got the world record the first time he got the world record because he was the only contestant in that age group. And then, but he was sort of right. Well, that's pretty good, but he still had something to beat, which was himself, and so he's now been beating his own world record every year since. So it was that. I guess it was the energy of that person, of Les Darcy, and then one by one, we found the other characters. People aren't shocked about you revealing them to the world. So, for instance, Lisa. I mean, Lisa is probably the sort of maybe the more controversial characters, and quite a lot she gets asked by journalists now the film is out. She gets asked, "Do you like the way you've been portrayed?" And her instant response is just, "Hell yeah, that's who I am. That's me." And I'm
more like I'm even more than that.
So, and she loves it. And we haven't said it's not a send up, but we've tried to portray her very honestly, which is an incredibly competitive Austrian woman living in Texas.
I also love the way in documentaries, and this sort of comes back to also photography, which I was interested in, is that you can capture the extraordinary in the ordinary, and in that sense there is no send up. You're not exposing, you're exposing the wonderfulness of life in all the little small details. And so, and if your subject is on board that, then it's just it should just be a wonderful experience for everybody involved. And I know that when Terry and Les saw the film in Sheffield, it was amazingly emotional for everybody. I mean, I think we were both in tears when they were there in the audience at the end and stood up, and there was sort of a standing ovation, and they walked down the aisle. They didn't walk, they floated down the aisle. And this is a 92-year-old man who, his knee is actually in really bad shape now, and Terry's sort of on his last legs, but they floated down that aisle and were overwhelmed to see themselves put on the inner story on the screen.
I think having a sensitivity to that that these are real people and this is real life. I think we're both quite sensitive to that. So one of the things with ping pong is that, we would always talk through with them first. They would always know what we were doing.
And it's why you're there, really.
Yeah, and it sort of and so that then helps both in making the film and explain. It helps your relationship with them.
But it helps both of you. It helps them understand why you're in their front room with a camera. What you're, as in what you're interested in making this film about. But also helps you define why you're interested in making this film. So, and it's that what you were just about to say. It's the relationship. I think that essentially then becomes your film is your relationship with the filmmaker's relationship with the participant, with the subject, ends up being the film.
That's the film. They're looking. Most of the time it's a conversation between between you and them, and you might be just behind the camera. But so it is that, yeah, exactly. It is that relationship, and telling them. So it just before every shoot, we'd just explain why we were there and what we wanted to do that day.
But then the brilliant thing with them not being actors and there isn't a script, is that you don't know what you're going to be doing. At the end of the day, do you know what I mean? You don't know how it's
so it's them, but allowing for stuff to happen.
Yeah.
But it's sort of general themes. I think I would always have, like, we'd go with general themes in mind. And they would, which would come, the themes would then come from conversations that we'd have. I mean, sort of endless cups of tea and conversations. And then saying, right, okay, well, we want to talk about this particular subject. Or, and I think it just had, so then it's you're building up a trust. And then to betray that trust would be very bad.
The release has been really, it's been really great. We, I mean, it's a small film that's sort of grown, and got released into cinemas on July the 6th, and at the same time went online on the Guardian website as a pay-per-view, and it's sort of only a few films have done this before, as I believe, and so this is an experiment in that sense, and we'll see how that goes. With the cinema release, we also got these Olympic screens that picked up on the film, and we're playing on 8 Olympic sites. I think it chimes with a lot of their sort of core ethos about bringing as many people into sport as possible. And the other part of our distribution, our release, is to play the films, tour the film in residential homes and care homes around the UK. There was an idea some months ago that the film might be used as a sort of an inspirational tool to motivate people in care homes, residential homes, to become active, to get up and play ping pong. So we partnered with a ping pong net company, and we made a very simple how to play table tennis DVD with the stars of the film, and we did that with a disabilities coach, because you can actually play table tennis sitting down and at sort of various different levels, and so this sort of pack of the film, the how to and the nets, is now doing a tour of care homes, and we've been to a few, and we've run it as a sort of test, and we were not surprised, but surprised how well it works. It works really well. People were generally, the energy in the room after the screening of the film was up, and they were itching to try and play and see if they could, and they did. And so that's the final part of our distribution, I guess. There'll be a DVD release later on in the year. But the care home and that tour is something that we're really keen to try and do elsewhere in the world, especially in the countries that the players are from. So that's something we're working on now. And there was another thing that some people have sort of tweeted or texted or reported back, that people of, I guess, my generation have been taking their grandparents or their parents, if their grandparents aren't around, to see the film in the cinema, which is a really nice a sort of I guess theme to come out of the release. Taking a grandmother to the movies, it's quite a good excuse.
I think the instant reaction is that it's a fun idea, and that it's going to be an uplifting film that is possible. That it's going to be sweet, and so. But I think in a sense that's maybe a challenge for us, because then it's quite easily dismissed, and that our challenge was then to find something more than that, and that is what we were always interested in. And I guess maybe so we saw that in the footage, and then early on other people didn't, and then slowly as we filmed more and the story developed, then we started to persuade other people that there are other layers to it. I mean, it's not just about growing old, it's not just about table tennis. There's other stuff. going on that applies to people, you know, that is just
Of all ages.
Of all ages, it's just.
But you're right. But but coming across the idea, there was the sense that we can actually believe nobody had made a film about this. Like, I mean, really? No one's made a film? Or it's shouting out at you to make a film, and I think it's such a strong sort of first layer that the octagenarians competing for gold
in Inner Mongolia.
In Inner Mongolia. In the sphere of table tennis, it's so strong that actually you're right. It's convincing people it's more than that. In the end, there's more. There's the other layers have enough meat and sort of legs on them to warrant sort of a feature-length film.